So what you're about to hear comes not from a Democrat, not from a media critic, but from a Republican congresswoman who was one of only 4 Republican members of Congress who signed the discharge petition that ultimately forced the release of the Epstein files. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is describing what happened behind the scenes for months before that release, and what she says the president told her directly over the phone. This is significant because it comes from inside the Republican caucus, from someone who describes herself as a Trump supporter, and from someone who was present for the pressure campaign she's about to describe.
Here's the interesting part. Okay, there were only 4 Republicans, only 4 of us that signed that discharge petition: Thomas Massie, myself, Lauren Boebert, and Nancy Mace. Now, what was happening in the background for months leading up to when we finally got it released is we were getting pressure from the White House. We were getting pressure from the speaker. Do not take your name off this discharge petition. And we're like, why? We're talking about the Epstein files. This is the ultimate promise. This is the ultimate way to provide transparency. This is the ultimate way to take it to the deep state and expose a whole criminal cabal of rich, powerful elites that I believe control everything. And guess what? Come to find out, they do.
They do.
And so we're like, why? So in the meantime, President Trump is calling it Epstein, the whole thing a hoax. Yeah. He's calling it a Democrat hoax. He won't have anything to do with the women. He still refuses to have anything to do with these women. So this whole thing is building. The women are saying President Trump did nothing wrong. They still say this. President Trump did nothing wrong.
I know.
Their attorney says Donald Trump's the only one that helped us. And guess what? That came out in the Epstein files, that he reported Jeffrey Epstein. Yep. So but Donald Trump is fighting it. President Trump is fighting it. President Trump is yelling at me. The White House is putting pressure on Nancy Mace. They take Lauren Boebert in a SCIF. I don't even know what they said to her in there. They are attacking Thomas Massie, nonstop attacking Thomas Massie. And then one day I get a phone call from the president in September, and he is so mad at me. And he's yelling at me, and he's angry at me. And the fact that he's like, you're supporting Rand Paul Jr., and he's chewing me out for signing my name on Thomas Massie's discharge petition to release the Epstein files. And I'm trying to tell him, Mr. President, they say you did nothing wrong. Right. This needs to come out. Right. And so we're having this argument. And he tells me on this phone call, he's like, Marjorie, my friends will get hurt.
Let's slow down here because there's a lot happening in that clip. Greene is describing a coordinated pressure campaign originating from the White House and the Speaker's office targeting Republican members of Congress who had signed a discharge petition to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files. A discharge petition is a procedural mechanism that allows members to bypass House leadership and bring legislation directly to the floor if they collect enough signatures. In this case, according to Greene's account, leadership wanted those signatures removed. Greene describes 4 Republicans who held firm: Thomas Massie, herself, Lauren Boebert, and Nancy Mace. She says Boebert was taken into a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility, a specially secured room used for classified briefings where recording devices are prohibited. Greene says she doesn't know what was said to Boebert in that room. Massie, according to Greene, was subjected to non-stop public attacks, and Greene herself received a direct phone call from the president. According to Greene's account of that call, Trump was angry, accused her of supporting Rand Paul Jr., a reference to Massie's political alignment, and was, in her words, yelling at her. Greene says she attempted to tell the president that Epstein survivors had publicly stated he did nothing wrong, and had even reportedly helped by reporting Epstein. She says she argued that the files should come out for that reason. And then she describes what Trump said to her: Marjorie, my friends will get hurt. That phrase is what observers across the political spectrum have focused on. Supporters of the administration have argued that Trump was referring to associates who were falsely named in Epstein documents without having done anything wrong, and that the comment reflects concern about protecting innocent people from reputational damage through unverified claims. names. Critics argue that the phrase, combined with the documented pressure campaign to stop the release, raises serious questions about who the administration was trying to protect and why. What makes this account notable is its source. Greene is not a Trump critic. She has been one of his most consistent defenders in Congress. Her description of being personally called by the president and yelled at for trying to release information she believed would exonerate him is, at minimum, an unusual account of how the administration handled the Epstein file release.
I mean, people are losing their minds, rightfully so, over what has come out. And the most outrageous part, Jillian, is that the people in charge are not taking it seriously and are not investigating it. And it seems that no one will be held accountable. And that's the point where it's breaking Americans, is how can we read these things with our own eyes and read them on an FBI form, but yet the FBI and the Department of Justice and the administration and even the president himself is unwilling to take it serious. And so I think it's a really rough time for a lot of people.
Greene's final observation cuts to what many Americans across the political spectrum have expressed: the gap between what the documents show and what the institutions responsible for accountability are doing about it. According to NPR reporting from February 2026, Representatives Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, a Republican and a Democrat who co-authored the Epstein Files Transparency Act, reviewed unredacted files at the Department of Justice and identified names of 6 men whose identities had been wrongly redacted from public versions. They accused the DOJ of covering up identities and scrubbing files ahead of release. According to the same reporting, Attorney General Bondi appeared before Congress the same week and repeatedly deflected questions about the files, with Massie pressing her on why specific names had been redacted. Bondi defended the DOJ's work. In a separate congressional hearing also this month, FBI Director Kash Patel testified that the FBI has no credible information that Epstein trafficked girls to anyone other than himself. However, according to CNN reporting from February 2026, documents included in the very release Patel's FBI oversaw contain a draft indictment from the 2000s naming 3 unnamed co-conspirators who worked for Epstein and allegedly facilitated appointments between Epstein and underage girls. Those names remain redacted. Greene's frustration reflects a sentiment expressed by members of both parties. Massie and Khanna, the bipartisan architects of the transparency law, have both stated publicly that the DOJ is not complying with the legislation they passed. Survivors' attorneys have filed for judicial intervention, arguing that victim privacy violations were preventable. And congressional Democrats, as seen in the Nadler-Bondi exchange, have documented that 0 Epstein co-conspirators have been indicted despite a year of DOJ leadership under Bondi. What Greene is describing a Republican congresswoman saying the president called her personally to stop the release, that the White House pressured members of his own party, and that she believes no one will be held accountable, is a portrait of institutional failure that critics on both sides of the aisle are now describing in strikingly similar terms. Whether the explanation is protection of innocent associates, classified investigative concerns, or something else entirely remains, according to Greene herself, something the public cannot fully assess because the people responsible for investigating it appear, in her view, unwilling to do so. If this kind of accountability matters to you, consider subscribing.